So before we start, let's just take a moment of silence to ingather, to bring ourselves back in the body, if not already. And to invoke Mother's and Sri Aurobindo's presence. So we've been here today. Yeah, we've been reading and reflecting upon Conversations with Sri Aurobindo by Pavitra, and I just go through it like, and randomly here we select whatever we want to go through. So yeah, I think we can take this one today. Yes. So this Monday, January 4, 1926. Yes. Let's read this first. Yeah, if anyone would like to go ahead, please unmute.
Yes.
Yeah.
Monday, January 4th, 1926. I succeed in fixing my consciousness so as to remain awake, immobile, in the silence. This state lasts only for a few moments. It happens that my consciousness is then centered in a point next to the eyebrow center. This exercise involves a great fatigue of the brain and a work in the three centers: solar, eyebrow, and occipital. Later, this cerebral effort will disappear, for you will not work with the brain. This is an intermediate state. Your consciousness will be centered at a particular moment outside your physical body, above your head. Then it will expand, and you will become aware of its unity with the other centers. The throat center is not involved, for it is not a mental center, but only vocal. Most people who work with the emotional mind remain at the level of the solar plexus. If one becomes aware
Yeah.
of one's, yes,
Let's pause here. Sorry. We'll take a pause here and maybe see what is in here for us. Yeah, so we can take whatever takeaway we feel is there for us. It can be different from different people. But this we had read earlier also. I feel that it's a good use of time when we are waiting for someone rather than feeling frustrated because of the waiting, or when we are driving or walking. it can be done, this fixing of our consciousness outside the body, which is a few inches above the head. And why? Because when we get tired of our thoughts, because we see that they are endless and there is like round and round circular spiral movement going on in the head all the time, and we are trying to connect the dots, not even wantingly. At times it just goes in the background. So it's a very good use of, just like we focus ourselves on the breath, and like that, it is a very good use of time. And plus it also takes us away from that like sucking down earthly mortal consciousness. It takes us towards our true consciousness. So this is to be experimented. We can't just have it conceptually. We can like take it from here, but if we don't experiment with it, then it's nothing for us. So that's why I would not say much about it. Yeah, so if there is anything anybody wants to share on this, otherwise we go ahead. Okay, so that means we go ahead. So we take the next one. Here, this one. Let's see if anyone feels like reading it.
If one becomes aware of one's unity with the whole, does one consequently become capable of identifying one's consciousness with that of another center of consciousness? Not all at once. There are two stages. First, you will feel your unity with the other centers of consciousness in the silence. It is in the transcendent that you will feel the identification. Later, you will realize this union even in the manifested activity, in the play of forces. And at that moment, the union you speak about is possible.
So this is a very common experience when we begin to kind of sit with ourselves and meditate or try to do these experiments, that we see that when we are meditating or when we are all by ourselves, then there is a different state of being that we are in, but that gets lost very quickly when we are engaging in any activity of our day-to-day life. So these kind of experiences, again, it is more practical, more experiential, so really not much can be said, but we see that there is a gulf between our realization and manifestation. Like in day-to-day practical activities, we feel that we are not in the same higher state of consciousness where we were when we were meditating, for example, even if we have touched that space for a little time. So that is why the other centers, Sri Aurobindo says that one can be at working at all the centers at once or identified with all the centers at once also, but that comes later. First it comes that, oh, let me just be all by myself because I have to just, kind of, you want to rejuvenate yourself or touch that space. So you say, okay, let me be with myself. I need quiet time. And then we see that at times we are able to manifest that higher consciousness in our day to day activity also. Again, we have glimpses of that, but not to a full extent, because very soon we are again pulled down in the on the ego floor, or the lower consciousness, and there is something that again becomes not easy, like it's not the highest possibility that we are choosing. And it is only in degrees that this can happen. The more we get a newer taste of things in our life rather than continuing with the older taste. And that is why mother says that when we begin to have disgust with our older self, कि अब बर्दाश्त नहीं होता, like I'm getting tired of myself, then it's a very good point, because then it makes me it is difficult for me to take that U-turn again. So more and more we lose the bad taste that we had earlier. But again, it is a process, it is a experiential realization. So nothing again much can be said, but it's good to read, and it comforts us and consoles us that it happens like this, and it takes time also. But it can be done. That's what she's sharing, that at the moment the union you, so later on, even in the manifested activity, in the play of forces, and at that moment the union you speak about is possible. So initially not possible. That initial stage may take a long time, depending on our effort or grace, many things. If there is anything, please. That day, I came across just a very short kind of a talk by Swami Chinmayananda, and he was sharing that in an interview. I had shared it on the meditation group. He was sharing, just shut up and get out. So I was curious, what is what is he sharing, and I just kind of clicked. It was like 1 minute or a 2 minute video, and he was actually talking about this, the second half of this page. He was sharing that shut up means shut up your mind, shut up in your mind, like how we try to silence the chatter, or and not ignore whatever is coming in the chatter. And then he said, get out of the idea that you are the body. You are not the body. You are much, much more than the body. So this he shares here, Sri Aurobindo. This is the first aspect of mukti, the recognition that you are free from your body. And again, it is something which can, of course, we can understand conceptually, but practically, to whatever degree we can realize, I think that is what really speaks to us. This he asks, Pavitra Da is asking, I do not yet succeed in realizing actually the independence of my real being from my physical body. So conceptually I may have an idea that yes, I am not the body, I am not the body, but actually there is no realization of that sort. An independence which I can conceive mentally. Will I realize this division? So would I practically be able to experience that I am actually more than the body and not the body? And then he shares, this will necessarily come, and you will realize that your body is an instrument which you can put aside. Now this is very interesting, because like like we are changing clothes. What we do is that I remove my jacket and I put it aside. And then I'm not concerned with the jacket anymore. So it's very inspirational to read it here, that अच्छा ये भी possibility है हमारी कि we can actually look at the body like that, that okay, letting the body be and knowing ourselves as our true consciousness, वो भी हमारी possibility है. This is the first aspect of mukti, the recognition that you are free from the body. Yeah. So anything so far, anyone? If not anything, then we can go ahead. Yeah, would anyone want to read?
I'll read. All the same, certain imperfections, like the desire for approbation, for consideration, are very strong, though mentally I fight them. Yes, and your being is much more complex still than you imagine. The time will come when you will observe your inner being as though it were outside. And there is a part of your consciousness which gives its sanction to this movement of nature. For there is in you something which desires this approbation, although your mind struggles. But the mind can only restrain, it cannot change anything.
Yeah.
Should I go ahead or?
No, I will stop here.
Okay.
Take this up. Thank you. So the desire for approval, I think something that all of us must have tasted to some or the other degree. Desire for praise, desire for being respected or being acknowledged even, if not praised, at least acknowledged कि हम हैं, किसी ने हमें notice किया. So this is something which is quite somehow I can say innate. Even if one has not developed it, it is just there. Like darkness is there. We can't help it. It is there, and for consideration, and all the same, certain imperfections like the desire for approbation, for consideration, are very strong. Though mentally I fight them. So mentally, of course, when we read good words, we get to know that, actually this is not required. This is something which is like a pattern which is harmful to me, and I'm not getting anything from it. So why is it here? I don't need it. I don't need to follow its dictates. But yet we see that it is there. And not only it is there, that it is actually jumping again and again and wanting to be there. एक बार हटाया तो हटता नहीं है, फिर दूसरी बार आता है, फिर तीसरी बार आता है, फिर चौथी बार आता है, एज इफ कि उसको कुछ फर्क ही नहीं पड़ रहा जैसे तुम्हारे ना हटाने से. So then Sri Aurobindo says that yes, and your being is much more complex. And this complexity, I'm sure all of us must have a taste of by now, to a certain degree, that how contradictory our movements are. हम सोचते कुछ और हैं, करते कुछ और हैं, और हमको लगता है कि हमने वही किया जो सोचा था, but actually में our actions are not really reflective of really what the true intention may be. और अपने आप को ही उल्लू बनाते हैं बहुत बार, कि हमें लगता है नहीं नहीं आई वाज सो ऑनेस्ट, लेकिन somehow in the background कुछ चल रहा होता है कि actually I'm not really honest, otherwise how is that contradiction possible? So our being is complex. I think, I'm sure all of us must have at least a glimpse of it. कहानी black and white नहीं है. There are shades of grays in between, lots of planes of consciousness interacting with each other, making it quite a pell-mell kind of a confused state of being. And that is why Mother and Sri Aurobindo say that the first step is to unify your being. कि एक ही center of operation हो, to find the psychic being, that is what is the first and major kind of a step. So yes, and your being is much more complex still than you imagine. The time will come when you will observe your inner being as though it were outside. Very interesting. तो अभी हम जिस तरीके से बोलते हैं, हम बोलते हैं हमारी आत्मा हमारे अंदर है. Usually that is the kind of terminology that we use. But मास्टर्स हैव सेड दैट आत्मा के अंदर सब कुछ हो रहा है, आत्मा तुम्हारे अंदर नहीं है। लेकिन हम बात कर सकते हैं इस चीज के बारे में, लेकिन हमको उसकी रियलाइजेशन नहीं है। इट्स लाइक अ मेंटल कॉन्सेप्ट टू मी. I may believe in it owing to some past karmas or whatever understanding. I may believe that yes, this appears to be true, this appears to be true, but I don't have a practical realization of it, that this is true. So he says that the time will come when you observe your inner being as though it were outside. So like we can take this example of space, है ना। तो हम कहते हैं कि इस घर के अंदर की स्पेस, दैट इज द यूजुअली द टर्मिनोलॉजी वी यूज, बट एक्चुअली वी आर नॉट रियलाइजिंग दैट घर इज इन द स्पेस. It's something like that, that consciousness that who we truly are, it's like that space which is holding a house, giving space to a house, and our body is like that house. It is held in that space. But I think that there is space inside my body, which also is true, which cannot be untrue, because there is space inside the body also. So again, not to be caught in the words, but yet there is something that we ought to realize for ourselves practically. And then he says that there is a part of your consciousness, this we had read earlier when in the beginning we had talked about how the Purusha, witnessing Purusha, comes into front and reveals itself in successive stages. There he had said, Sri Aurobindo, that there comes a phase in your life when, because of this successive stepping back and taking stances, witnessing Purusha, you see that it is the Purusha who has by default given a sanction to be puppeted by Prakriti. And the moment you realize that I am the one who is sanctioning to be played by the circumstances and movements of Prakriti, you can actually withdraw that sanction. You said कि अब मुझे दिख गया, अब मुझे और इसका victim नहीं बनना, now I don't want to be puppeted around, so you take back the sanction. लेकिन हमें लगता है कि कोई और हमें चला रहा है, लेकिन एक्चुअली में कोई और चला नहीं रहा, हम खुद ही चला रहे हैं. लेकिन बाय डिफॉल्ट वो सैंक्शन सबको दी गई है, लाइक बाय डिफॉल्ट सबको हर जगह का पासपोर्ट दे दिया गया है ना. तो सब कुछ पॉसिबल है, बहुत सारी पॉसिबिलिटीज है. द मोमेंट आई रियलाइज दैट कंट्री आई डोंट वांट टू गो इन, सो आई कैंसिल माय पासपोर्ट, क्योंकि बाय डिफॉल्ट मेरे पास हर कंट्री का पासपोर्ट है, लाइक दैट, समथिंग लाइक दैट. So he says that there is a part of your consciousness which gives its sanction to this movement of nature. For there is in you something which desires this approval. And that is what we call as old patterns, like coming from childhood or our youth. है ना, कि कभी ना कभी उस पैटर्न ने हमको सर्व किया है. All these older patterns that we have, either of thinking, feeling, or acting. But now, more and more as we grow in our consciousness, we realize that we are carrying those patterns that are now not serving us, actually becoming a burden for us. And that is where we have a lot of unease and suffering, because those patterns which I am following and acting according to those dictates, I actually don't need them in my being anymore. They have done their job. No, I can withdraw the sanction now. So for there is in you something which desires this approbation, although your mind struggles. So something in me wants that approval, wants to be praised, wants to be respected, acknowledged. But the mind can only restrain, it cannot change anything. So imagine like you are pulling back the horses. Horses are running at a very great speed. All that the mind can do is kind of pull back the reins a little, but it would not affect much of that agitation or the speed of the horses. You can of course try to control it a little, but it's a control which is the moment your reins are loose a little, again that force is still there. So उस force का कुछ नहीं हुआ. You have not done anything to change that force. So a true realization and understanding is not there, but a mental control is there, because somewhere a half understanding is there that I should not be doing this, but the whole being has not really totally kind of with clarity and transparency got it. And that is why we see that our usually our disciplines are like that. The whole being is not convinced, so our disciplines are also like they're faltering. 5 दिन करेंगे, we'll do it 5 days, 7 days, 6 days, and then again switch back to our older pattern. Then we will try, oh, I want to get up at this time, oh, I want to walk at this time, and again we will falter, because the whole conviction is not there, that unified conviction is not there. Some part of the being has understood, but not all the parts. The mind can only restrain, it cannot change anything. But again, I think that also is part of a kind of the game. At times, that is also necessary. So, yes. Yeah, anything here? Anyone?
Yeah, the last sentence, but the mind can only restrain, it cannot change anything. I think it's very revelatory again and again, especially people who think that, the reasoning is great and everything is because, how we have been born with these statements that I think, therefore I am. And the whole world believes that and applauds that. And here Sri Aurobindo is saying that the mind can only restrain, it cannot change anything. So it's very revelatory, because so much of my day is lost in my thoughts, right? Thinking that things are changing because I'm thinking about them. So again and again, I'm finding these in so many writings. Even, when mother says that most of our actions are like we are just stirring water in a cup. Because there is movement, we feel things are happening, and nothing is happening. Similarly, there's no if and but about it. He's not saying usually it cannot change anything. Mostly it cannot change anything. He's saying it cannot change anything. So it really forces me to question my energies, or the lack of restraint that I have on my mind, that it keeps on running, keeps on running, keeps on running. Why, when it cannot change anything? So, yeah, very, very powerful and very, I don't know, how it's like we get into this mold and habit, and it's making me feel that, okay, it's time to now break that mold, break that mold. And obviously, we get pushed here again and again, but we keep going back. So, yeah, because we are using the mind, and the mind cannot change anything. And what you were, talking, that we make resolves and we start practices, we do it for 5 days, 10 days, and then we go back to our older patterns. And it's very confusing from the mind's point of view, because you want to do it and yet you cannot do it. So again, this shows light on that as well, that if it's just the mind, right, the whole being, if it's not dedicated to it, believes it, buys it, if I'm just buying something mentally, it cannot change anything. It will be very superficial, temporary, and I can stop being confused, is what I can say. Yeah, thank you.
Yes. Anything more here? Anyone? What does change anything mean here? So Snehi is asking, what does change anything? Change anything, very simply put, there are things that we want to change in our life, don't we? From time to time, there are things that, oh, this thing I want to, like if you are not disciplined, and you say that, no, I want to be sorted and organized and disciplined. From time to time, we do have these ideas in our mind. But we see that we continuously have lots of failures also in trying to discipline ourselves. So that is what it can be in one way of saying that it is not changing. Truly, it is not changing me. I want to, a part of me really desperately want to get organized and sorted and disciplined. And yet, as was shared, that no matter how many times I put my alarm and I try to change, अच्छा 5 का नहीं तो मैं 5:30 का लगा लेती हूँ, अच्छा 5:30 का नहीं तो मैं 6 बजे try करती हूँ. We keep on trying many things. All of us do that from time to time. But we see that these are things which are, of course, we can stretch them like 1 week, 2 week, maybe 1 month, 2 months, 5 months, at times 1 year. But then again, something happens and we go back to our very lazy old schedules, which doesn't require much discipline and effort. And that is why we have these prayers, like we were discussing, that they asato ma sadgamaya, तमसो माँ ज्योतिर्गमय, तमस से मुझे लाइट की तरफ, फ्रॉम तमस टेक मी टुवर्ड्स लाइट एंड डिसिप्लिन, फॉर एग्जांपल, or effort, knowing that because there is tamas, hence effort is something which cannot be escaped. And all the masters, all the mystics who have done really something beautiful with their life, we have so many good examples. If we look at their disciplines, they can be really horrifying. Like how did you manage to do that? And we have these examples even in our contemporary world, where people who are just even in one phase, kind of field of their life, say musicians, hmm, or athletes, sports persons, they also have to follow a discipline. And we very well know all of these, even Indian classical like musicians, or any musician, even westerns, so we see that they have a very nice schedule according to whatever their nature allows, that रियाज कभी नहीं छोड़ते, वो उनको रियाज करना ही करना है ना. तो वो एज कितनी भी हो गई हो, चाहे उन्होंने पब्लिक परफॉर्मेंसेस करनी बंद कर दी हो, बट वो रियाज नहीं छोड़ेंगे, वो रियाज करते रहेंगे. And in the beginning, it is a very big challenge to push ourselves into this riyaz, for sure. Because in the beginning, you are, like just Sunma shares, that you're trying to play an instrument, your fingers are hurting, the music that you play, it's not coming out very nice, it's not melodious, the tunes are not right, and yet you continue to practice until one day some tune comes out which is like palpable, like you see that, oh, something happened, right? And that motivates you. So you have of continuation of that discipline. So when we begin to discipline ourselves, and we see that we have to push ourselves. पुशिंग की बहुत जरूरत फील होती है. और I have seen that we become self motivated also. Like if, say, very trivially speaking, it is about getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, which I want to do because I feel good waking up at that time, let's say, right? Now, one day if I do it really nicely and I have a taste of something very beautiful in that period, that taste itself will propel me to get up the next day also, and the next day also, and the next day also. And slowly also we will see that at times I will be missing that period. If I missed, for example, getting up 4 o'clock today because I was too tired at night, and I missed that 4 o'clock time, then something will linger in my memory and it will call me to get up at that time. So I will say, no, that does me benefit, let me get up. So we slowly, when we get benefit out of it, we also become self-motivated. And this is how slowly change happens. But here, just I kind of extended that example, but here Sri Aurobindo says that mind can restrain, but it cannot truly make a functional change. Like अब वो आप उस U-turn आप ले ही नहीं पा रहे हो. No, अब जो U-turn नहीं आपके बस का. So we will see that people who are able to have these disciplines, they don't give these disciplines a second thought. Like if I decide that 4 o'clock I have to get up, then mind will not come in between and say, oh yaar, so jate hain, thoda sa, let me sleep, till late today, because I've been doing it for 10 days in a row. No, too much. So you don't give it a second thought. And that means that the mind is not coming in between. Think about it, आपने किसी को 10 बजे का टाइम दिया, you give somebody like okay 10 a.m. I will be there. Now you don't give it a second thought. It is fixed in your mind. Done. Now the mind does not now come in between. Something centrally has been decided, and you don't allow the mind to kind of interfere with it. Now then a discipline can go on, and then it can actually make us feel a practical realization slowly. All these practical realizations in our being, their kind of an orientation of being changes. They come gradually through our efforts only, but something centrally has to change. That is what I think is also implicit here, that something central has to get convinced that this is very, very, very important for me. It's not just a conceptual understanding that you are talking of. Something central has kind of changed, transfigured, है ना? तब आपको माइंड को बीच में लाने की जरूरत नहीं पड़ेगी. तब आप उससे पूछोगे नहीं कि अगर आज मैं उठूं कि नहीं उठूं, पूछने की जरूरत नहीं पड़ेगी. सेंट्रल आपका एक कन्विक्शन आ गया, बस. देन it's like the ball has started rolling. It's a very yeah, kind of takes time, but it's when it happens it can be really powerful. So even when you have good days, we may start our discipline of meditating or whatever, sitting in quietude, centering ourselves above our head, whatever. We may start it in our difficult times, right? Most of us start it in our difficult times. But even when they are goody goody times, we don't stop that discipline. We don't ask ourselves to stop it. We don't consult the mind. And when we are able to continue that discipline which is benefiting us even in the goody goody times, I think that really is a little kind of a baby step ahead or a victory, which has to continue. Of course, it should not stop. But it means that my tastes are changing now for good. All of us have to practically work with these, experiment, fail at times, succeed at times, then again fail, drop it on the way, then again pick it up. These are all experiments which we have to do until something becomes natural for us. Like we pick up a pace which is unique and natural to us. So that's about it. Anything more here, anyone? So we will go further then. We'll take one more at least. So, yes. Yeah, would anyone want to read it out loud?
Yes. That this change, this transmutation may be effective, it is necessary, according to my own ideas, to attain the cosmic consciousness and to get possession thus of the universal solvent, as the alchemists say. Then can't one transmute? No, this does not suffice. When you come down again from your cosmic consciousness, the same tendencies are there which can always be restored to life. But beyond the immanent aspect of the absolute power, the aspect which you realize in the experience of the cosmic consciousness, there is what may be called the transcendent aspect, which is creative and without limitations. This is the solvent which destroys and creates. The vital Purusha who consented to a certain movement of nature must surrender to the higher life and the transformation is possible. There are several levels in the incarnated consciousness. The Upanishads speak of 5 Purushas bound to the 5 Koshas.
I think we should also take the next one along with this. Yeah. So if maybe you can continue the next one also.
Okay. In the case in which the soul succeeds in escaping from the world of forms and entering into nirvana, in sinking into the silence, is this fusion and loss of individuality final? Naturally, this is what many seek. The Absolute has 2 aspects as Purusha: the transcendent, immutable Purusha, and the mutable Purusha, as the Gita says. The soul can realize its union with the first. Prakriti disappears and the soul escapes from the manifested world, which it considered a falsehood, an illusion, or a dangerous trap. But this cannot satisfy, for the Absolute contains also the mutable Purusha and the soul, if it wants integral union, must realize its unity with the divine in the manifestation, as with the transcendent. Besides, to say that the soul has become finally absorbed in the Absolute is only a way of speaking. Is this liberation final? I'm far from granting this. The Absolute has an aspect which knows itself, loves itself, etc., through us as intermediaries. And that is the reason of the manifestation.
Thank you. So I don't know, again, many things here which we may not be able to even fathom. So please take whatever resonates with each one of us. One thing which comes to me here is, very kind of simply put, like we have several planes of consciousness. I think that I am just this, but I am not just this. I am living at several floors. One can say, like an apartment has several floors, and like that there are floor of like mental consciousness, the floor of vital consciousness, the floor of body consciousness, the floor of psychic consciousness, spiritual consciousness, and maybe transcendent further. So if I just go to like an upper floor, where there is absolute silence and things are totally peaceful. So what I understand for me here is that yes, there it's peace, no doubt about it. But when you come down to the floor, which is also belonging to you, which is say the first floor or the second floor, there actually nothing has happened, no change has happened. There is still a lot of chaos there. So Sri Aurobindo says that I am far from granting this, that okay, you retire yourself to the higher floor and you don't make a return to the lower floor, and then no true transmutation really happens. Hmm? And in other works also, like Life Divine or Synthesis of Yoga, there also we see him saying that if Brahman is real, then Maya also is real, because Maya is coming from the Brahman. So I cannot reject Maya saying that no, no, this is illusionary, this is real. You know, Maya also has a role to play in what Brahman has created. So it has the possibility of being totally transmuted as well. We cannot exclude anything from the creation, because creation is coming from the creator. And if creator is real, then the creation also has to be real. So it means that if I have first floor and second floors, like I am the owner of all these floors, and I say that no, on the 16th floor I feel the best, I kind of retire there, what, like sinking into a silence or nirvana of that sort. He says that I do not grant this. My work is not that. And it is not that other yogas, he says that there are other masters who think that, okay, this is it. Because world is a Maya, world is illusion, and there is nothing that can happen truly in this darkness, or this will be like that. Like खराब ही है ये तो, ये ऐसा ही रहेगा. The nature is like that. But here we are talking of transfiguration of nature. So now I cannot say, now this is very good, because now I cannot say that the clay is bad. I have to acknowledge that yes, the clay is in darkness. But since the clay belongs to the divine, it also has the power to truly transfigure itself to the divine. है ना? तो ये बहुत सुंदर बात है, because there our work is like never ending. There is always some or the other aspect of the clay on which you can work, because the darkness is also seems like never ending. So when we go higher up, and this again comes in conversation with Sri Aurobindo by Pavitra and other places also, he says that you keep at contact with the upper or the deeper. You continue to make that contact. And more in our work, in our action, body, speech, mind, thoughts, feelings, we have to put that into action. ऐसे नहीं चलेगा कि 1 hour meditation, beautiful, 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 but when interacting with the world, oh, where am I stuck? वो नहीं चलेगा. This is not going to work. And that is why in Sri Aurobindo's yoga we see mother saying that it is in work that we have to find true repose, not in some meditative contemplation. That may be part of my life, but it is in work. So mother has given a lot of importance to practical work. Lots of importance. We have many stories of many sadhaks, devotees, and although mother encouraged concentration, dynamic meditation of all sorts, but it is only through certain hours. In fact, even I heard mother saying, even at some place where it is written, that mother says that at work, do not read or concentrate. Because you can go into trance, for example, okay, the work is lying unattended and you have gone into trance, so that she doesn't encourage. When work is there, then work is the way of union with the divine. So that is the active aspect, that you are going, of course, you are touching the higher floors and the deeper floors in your being, where there is peace, silence, everything is there. But you are bringing that light, more and more light into the practical, active aspects of life. The words, and Sri Aurobindo also says that it is of course far better that you, far easier that you don't speak a word, because whatever you speak, something rubbish comes out of your mouth. We can say that, oh, better I remain mourn. No, I should not speak this whole week, because I say things which I should not speak. But then he says that this is not right. This is far easier, but the best or the perfect is to speak only what is needed to be spoken. This is far more challenging. So this is the challenge that Sri Aurobindo gives us. Whoever is ready to pick it up. And this we see beautiful with Sri Aurobindo, that how little he would speak, like 1 word, 2 words. Amal Kiran says that I don't even know what was his kind of voice, because I never heard him speak. Isn't that amazing? A person who exchanged so much of notes on Savitri and questions and everything. He says, I don't know, I never heard his voice. So, and so much of work done without speaking unnecessary words. So that is true sadhana. So here I get, again, I'm sharing just what I get out of it, that the reflection that we get out of it is that yes, meditation, concentration, all these are aspects of our life which are mandatory and have to be a part of our discipline. But it is in work that we must find true repose, because we have to change this very clay which is defective, it seems. And if we don't work on that clay, then how would true change happen? So, not to become a recluse that, oh, let me not engage with work because, it just kind of makes me go out. You are going out, but yet you are ingathered within. So, that is the challenge expected of us, given to us. Yeah, so anything more over here? So I'm remembering something by, I don't know who was it, maybe Ramdas or Jack Confield, can't really remember. I think he said that if you think that you are truly realized or have some realization, go and spend a Christmas with your family. So, in our interactions, things have to change. Because when we interact with our relatives and family, we see that all those chatters or patterns which I thought I have transcended, right here they are in my front on my face. So what has truly happened? So it's a very good test. I'm not saying to put ourselves into challenges like that, like jumping into fire, but if the challenges are there in front, I think they are a very, very good test, as mother says, of our weaknesses and imperfections, which I don't get to know if I don't test myself in those waters. I don't get to know. So work, giving ourselves to work, and of course that work uh, requires some or the other kind of interaction at various levels. There I see, oh, I still have desire for approval. I still want some respect. Oh, I still, why am I craving for some respect and praise that I did this work? So we get to know these things only when we engage in work. When we become a recluse, how would I know that things are happening or not? It's like we were talking the other day of wound and salt. So a very good test of your wound that it has healed is put salt on it. It appears cruel, but then you would know whether it is truly healed or not. Yeah. So any last comments? I think we can. Yes.
No, thank you for that. I agree. Like I felt in my own experience that yeah, it's easy to delude yourself when you're maybe recluded. You don't have much interaction, and it's easy to think you have transcended some things that you haven't. Mm. even of course in another level, even Sri Aurobindo and Mother had to overcome some of this. When in the second, when the world war started, and then a lot of people came to the ashram that were not exactly yogis, but families and children, and they had to decide, and they decided to make of the ashram a bigger place with people who would not be in the same level of understanding and commitment like the small ashram of the beginnings. They had to, change the perspective of the yoga. Yes, probably it's more difficult to have a healthy relationship with others than to just be apart.
Yeah, true, very true. I think it also tells me that, like, for example, if I am having some addiction, then the best for me, I think, is that, oh, I must not even see the object of my addiction. For a time, it may be required, maybe for me, that I don't see it, out of sight, out of mind. But we see that lots of things in the mind also keep going on. It's not just out of sight, out of mind, not like that, because the mind continues that momentum of thinking about that thing. But then I think, as you were sharing, the best is that you can be in front of, true renunciation would be that I can be in front of that thing and yet not feeling any craving for that particular object or thing. That would be a remarkable kind of inward realization or achievement, that I am in front of that thing and I'm not feeling like picking it up at all. That tells me that something truly has changed. And that is what masters like talk about as true renunciation. Like we see it with Sri Aurobindo, that cigars, for example, he's smoking cigar, and one fine day somebody tells him, okay, kind of leave it and not touched again. So, and we think that, oh, because Sri Aurobindo is smoking cigar, I also smoke cigar. But we are sticky beings, and once we have our cigar, then we will want it every day. So I think, yeah, that would be like a very good challenge and a mark of true realization, that that cigar is in front of me and I have no particular craving for that cigar. If I have it, I have it. If I don't have it, I don't have it. Like that. Nothing in me moves because of this. So nothing in me gets excited because I'm going to have it, or nothing in me gets disappointed when I'm not going to have it. So that would be, I feel, that some really remarkable achievement within. Yeah.
Yeah. Also regarding this relationships, we talked about this. You shared this document that talked about going from human love to divine love or something like that. And I think regarding to that, Mother was specific to say that it is not good to cut out love, to dry our hearts, being apart from everyone, but better to refine our quality of love, to refine our love through relationship with other people, and don't we otherwise can get a risk to dry our hearts, and if we cannot develop our love, we will not be able to love the divine neither.
Yeah, very true. I think in the crux in that compilation, human love, sadhana through human love, at various many instances, it is said by Mother Sri Aurobindo both. They say that love reaches its actually true fulfillment when it is completely turned to the divine. Because it is impossible that if love is turned to people and objects, that you don't have the byproducts of jealousy and attachment and all that. It is impossible. You can't do that, they say. So when we are having this kind of a human love, in which we have byproducts, and not only byproducts, like it comes hand in hand, all these things like jealousy and attachment and anger and hatred, they come in parcel, part and parcel of human love. Then I think if it makes us suffer, because these things make us suffer. So when these things begin to make us too much suffer, I think that's a very good point, because that is what makes me realize that like this I cannot go on. Something is really amiss. Something is not right. Something is not right. And when we acknowledge that something is not right in our way of loving or approaching things, then we can begin to work upon it, as masters have said. So it makes us so uneasy, because who is the person who is fine with jealousy? Who is the person who is not suffering in attachment? Yeah. There comes a time that at time attachment may give you pleasure, because that thing is in front of you. But the moment that thing is taken away from you, what then? And the thing will be taken away from you. So it's very interesting. I feel it's although very intense, this sadhana through human love is very intense for those of us who may have a taste of it. But I think it also has a lot of possibility that one can totally and fully turn to the divine, because it's just too much of pain that comes through that aspect of kind of, a degraded form of love, which is human love. Yeah. So there is a lot of possibility of change and turning fully to the divine. And of course, when we turn fully to the divine, since divine is in all beings and creatures and everything, it doesn't mean that we are not interconnected and relating. We are relating, but in a manner which is like non-sticky. Yeah, any last comments, anyone? So let's take a moment of silence then, if not anything to share, and dedicate all the merit, individual and collective, with all the sentient beings near and far, who also crave happiness and wellness. May suffering and the causes of suffering be taken away from us. May we have true happiness and true causes and conditions for true happiness. Thank you.